Welcome, seeker of ancient wisdom, to the shadowed chronicles of the Sith. If this journey into darkness calls to your spirit, consider leaving a mark by liking this tale and subscribing to hear more legends from galaxies far beyond. The air hangs heavy with ash on the barren plains of Ruusan. What was once a verdant world now lies scorched, its surface transformed into glass and obsidian by forces beyond mortal comprehension. No birds call in the deathly silence, no creatures stir among the twisted remains of what were once proud armies. The Brotherhood of Darkness and the Army of Light, locked for 7 long years in bitter conflict, have been erased in a single, blinding moment. At the epicenter of this devastation stands a lone figure, cloaked in darkness, face hidden beneath a hood. The figure kneels, running gloved fingers through the crystallized soil where 1,000 Sith Lords drew their final breath, their combined power, their shared ambition, their collective darkness, all extinguished, not by the Jedi who opposed them, but by one of their own. In their final moments, did they understand the truth? Did they comprehend that their destruction was not merely inevitable, but necessary? That their shared power had become weakness, their brotherhood a chain that bound the dark side rather than unleashing it? The figure rises, turning toward the horizon where distant stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. The thought bomb that consumed this battlefield was but the first step in a grand design spanning centuries, millennia. A design that would remain hidden until the perfect moment when the galaxy would tremble before the revenge of the Sith. Who was this architect of destruction? What force could drive a simple cortosis miner from the forgotten world of Apatros to become the most pivotal figure in Sith history? What terrible wisdom did he uncover in ancient holocrons that convinced him that the only path forward required the annihilation of his own kind? To understand, we must return to the beginning, to harsh tunnels carved deep beneath an unforgiving world, to a boy born into suffering who would one day become Darth Bane, the creator of the Rule of Two and the salvation of the true Sith Order. The mining colony of Apatros hung suspended in perpetual twilight, orbiting a dim sun that barely penetrated the thick atmosphere. Here among the cortosis mines, life existed in shades of grey. The miners trudged through each identical day, their bodies bent with labor, their spirits crushed beneath the corporate heel of the Outer Rim Oreworks Company. The ore they extracted would become the galaxy's most coveted lightsaber-resistant material, yet they would never taste the wealth it generated. Among these broken men walked one who refused to break. Dessel stood taller than his peers despite the weight upon his shoulders. His face, already scarred from mining accidents and brutal brawls, bore a permanent expression of cold contempt. His eyes, sharp and calculating, missed nothing. The other, miners gave him space, calling him Bane behind his back, a nickname earned through fear rather than affection. Each day Dessel descended into the earth, feeling the tons of rock above press down upon him. While others found the sensation suffocating, he drew strange comfort from it. The pressure outside matched the pressure within, a constant reminder that only the strong survived. Tonight, the cantina buzzed with unusual energy. Republic soldiers on leave had come to squander their credits, their bright uniforms a stark contrast to the dust-covered miners. Dessel watched from the shadows, nursing a single drink. His father Hurst had been like these miners, weak and pathetic, drowning sorrows in cheap liquor, until the day he died, cursing the son he blamed for his wife's death in childbirth. A nearby soldier's voice cut through the haze. These mining rats should thank us. Without Republic protection, the Sith would have this rock stripped bare, and you lot working as slaves instead of paid laborers." Dessel's hand tightened around his glass. The Sith Wars raged across the galaxy, but news traveled slowly to backwater worlds like Apatros. The Republic painted the Brotherhood of Darkness as monsters, but Dessel had learned to question official truths long ago. "Hard to see how slavery would differ from this existence," Dessel commented, his voice low but carrying. The soldier turned, eyes narrowing. "You saying you prefer Sith rule, Minor?" "I'm saying one master differs little from another when you're at the bottom." What followed seemed to unfold in slow motion. The soldier lunged. Dessel moved with unexpected grace for a man his size. A punch connected. The soldier fell, his skull cracking against the durasteel floor with a sickening finality. Dead in an instant. Witnesses would later claim Dessel never touched him, that the soldier simply fell. But Dessel knew differently. He had felt something pass through him in that moment, something cold yet exhilarating, guiding his movements with terrible precision. Morning, Dessel had fled the planet, using credit saved over years for this inevitable moment. His destination was not chosen consciously, yet the transport he boarded carried him toward Sith space, toward a war that promised power to those willing to seize it. Aboard the freighter, Dessel dreamed of ancient temples and whispered secrets. He dreamed of standing atop a mountain of bodies, a red blade humming in his hand. He dreamed of a hooded figure kneeling before him, pledging loyalty not out of fear, but necessity. One master, one apprentice, the only way forward. Upon waking, the dreams faded, but the clarity remained. The path ahead was shrouded in shadow, yet Dessel felt drawn to it inexorably. In the darkness between stars, something ancient was calling to him, promising not escape from pain, but transcendence through it. The recruitment center for the Sith. Armies teemed with beings from across the galaxy, desperate souls seeking purpose or merely survival. The recruitment officer barely glanced at Dessel when he stepped forward. "Name?" Dessel paused, feeling the weight of his past falling away. "Bane," he answered, claiming the name his enemies had given him. "Just Bane," the officer nodded, uninterested, in the significance of the moment. Another name on another list, another body for the front lines. But the dark side had already marked this one for greater things. The Brotherhood would discover too late that they had welcomed their destruction into their very ranks. As Bane donned the armor of a Sith trooper, he gazed upon the symbol of the Brotherhood of Darkness emblazoned across banners hanging in the hall. Something about it struck him as fundamentally wrong, though he could not yet articulate why. In time, he would understand. In time, he would replace it with something far simpler and infinitely more terrifying. The war called, and Bane answered, taking his first step toward a destiny that would reshape the galaxy for millennia to come. The battlefield of Fazira stretched. Before Bane, littered with the broken bodies of Republic and Sith forces alike. 3 standard months had passed since his enlistment, and already he had distinguished himself in combat. His unit followed his commands without question, even those who outranked him officially. There was something in his tactical insight that bordered on precognition, an ability to sense movements before they occurred. Today's skirmish had been particularly brutal. Republic forces had been driven back, but at heavy cost. Bane stood among the carnage, unmoved by the suffering around him. Death was merely the final test of strength, one these fallen had ultimately failed. A Sith officer approached, his uniform marking him as part of Lord Khan's personal command. "You, soldier, your designation?" "Bane, sir." "You're the one they speak of, the one who led the charge that broke their lines." The officer studied him with new interest. "There are some who believe your talents are wasted on the front lines." "Sir?" The Etol Brotherhood is always seeking those with special aptitudes, those who can feel the force flowing through them. The officer circled him slowly. "Have you ever experienced moments of unusual clarity? Perfect awareness of your surroundings? Strength beyond your natural abilities?" Bane recalled the cantina. On Apatros, the sensation that had guided his hand with deadly precision. "Perhaps. Then you will report to Korriban. The academy there will determine if you are worthy of joining the true ranks of the Sith." As the transport descended toward Korriban's desolate surface, Bane gazed upon a landscape of red rock and ancient tombs. The very air seemed charged with power, with history. This was a world steeped in the dark side, where the greatest Sith Lords had been laid to rest. Their spirits, it was said, still haunted the Valley of the Dark Lords, testing those who sought to follow in their footsteps. The academy loomed against the blood-red sky, a monolithic structure of black stone. As Bane stepped from the transport, he felt it immediately, a pressure against his mind, a whispering chorus of ancient voices. The dark side flowed stronger here than anywhere in the galaxy. For the first time since he could remember, Bane felt something akin to reverence. This was no mere military installation or training ground. This was hallowed ground, the birthplace of a philosophy that had challenged the Jedi for millennia. "Welcome to Korriban, Acolyte," a voice spoke from behind him. "Few who enter these halls emerge again. Fewer still emerge worthy of the title Sith." Bane turned to find a tall, gaunt figure draped in black robes. Master Cordis, one of Lord Khan's inner circle, overseer of the academy and keeper of its darkest secrets. "I am ready to begin," Bane replied, meeting the master's gaze without flinching. Cordis smiled, a cold expression that never reached his eyes. "We shall see." The days that followed tested Bane as he had never been tested before. Physical trials pushed his body beyond mortal limits. Mental challenges probed the depths of his intellect and will. But it was the awakening of his connection to the force that truly transformed him. Where other acolytes struggled to feel the dark side, Bane embraced it like a lover. The rage he had carried since childhood, the hatred nurtured in the minds of Apatros, the ambition that burned in his soul, all became fuel for a fire that grew hotter with each passing day. In the combat arena, he dominated opponents with brutal efficiency. In the meditation chambers, he sank deeper into the dark side than many who had studied for years. Even the ancient tombs where many acolytes went mad from the whispers of long-dead Sith Lords seemed to welcome Bane as a kindred spirit. The other students began to fear him, all except one. Githany, a recent defector from the Jedi Order, watched Bane with different eyes. In her, Bane recognized a similar hunger, a willingness to do whatever was necessary to claim power. On the night that would forever alter the course of his destiny, Bane stood alone in the Academy library. Ancient scrolls and holocrons surrounded him, repositories of knowledge collected over thousands of years. Yet, as he studied them, a disturbing pattern emerged. The teachings of the Brotherhood contradicted the wisdom of the ancients. Where the old Sith had embraced passion and individual power, Lord Khan preached unity and shared strength. It was efficient for warfare perhaps, but something about it struck Bane as fundamentally wrong. A presence interrupted his thoughts. Githany approached, her beauty a weapon as dangerous as her lightsaber. "You see it too, don't you?" she whispered. The contradiction. Bane nodded. Khan has twisted the Sith philosophy to suit his purposes. The Brotherhood is not the way of the true Sith. Dangerous words, acolyte. Her fingers brushed his arm. But I've seen how you train, how you study. You seek something deeper than what they offer here. I seek the truth. Then perhaps you should look here. From beneath her robes, she produced a small crystalline object, a holocron, but unlike any in the Academy's collection. Taken from a hidden vault beneath Master Cordis's chambers. Bane accepted it, feeling a surge of dark energy at the touch. Whose knowledge does it contain? Darth Revan's, Githany whispered, the name itself seeming to darken the shadows around them. A true Sith from the ancient times, before the Brotherhood diluted our ways. As Bane activated the holocron in the privacy of his quarters that night, he could not know that he had just accepted the instrument of the Brotherhood's destruction, and with it the rebirth of the true Sith Order. The holocron of Darth Revan cast eerie crimson light across Bane's quarters as it activated. A holographic figure materialized above the crystal pyramid, a tall figure wearing ancient armor and a mask that concealed all features save for a pair of glowing eyes that seemed to pierce directly into Bane's soul. "I am Darth Revan, Dark Lord of the Sith," the apparition began, its voice echoing with power despite the millennia that had passed since these words were recorded. "If you have activated this holocron, you seek knowledge of the true nature of the dark side." For hours, Bane sat transfixed as Revan's teachings unfolded before him. The ancient Sith spoke of passion as strength, of conflict as growth, of domination as purpose. But most critically, Revan spoke of the fundamental flaw in allowing the dark side to be diluted among many. The dark side is not a torch to be passed. From hand to hand, its flame divided until each Sith holds but a candle, Revan's image declared. It is a singular inferno that must be contained within the worthy few. Many Sith means many weak Sith, their collective power diminished by their very numbers. As dawn broke over Korriban, Bane finally deactivated the holocron, his mind racing with implications. Everything he had questioned about the Brotherhood now crystallized into certainty. Lord Khan's philosophy of equality among the Sith was not merely flawed, it was heresy against the very nature of the dark side. In the days that followed, Bane's behavior changed subtly. He continued to excel in his training, but now he observed the other Sith with new eyes. He saw not brothers and sisters in darkness, but parasites feeding from the same limited well of power, each diminishing the others by their very existence. Master Cordis noticed the change. After a particularly impressive display in which Bane had defeated 3 opponents simultaneously, the Academy Overseer summoned him to his private chambers. "Your progress exceeds all expectations," Cordis said, his fingers forming a steeple beneath his chin. "Lord Khan himself has expressed interest in your development." "I am honored," Bane replied, the words hollow in his mouth. "Yet I sense reservation in you." Cordis's eyes narrowed. "You question our methods?" "I seek to understand them fully." "Understanding comes with time and proper guidance." Cordis gestured to a shelf of holocrons carefully curated. "These contain the approved wisdom of our order. They will answer any questions you might have." Bane recognized the implicit command. Study these teachings, not others. Follow this path, not your own. Accept our truth, not that of the ancients. And what of the teachings of Darth Revan? Bane asked, unable to completely mask the challenge in his voice. Of Naga Sado? Of Ajunta Pal? Are their words no longer worthy of consideration? A dangerous silence filled the chamber. Cordis rose slowly from his seat, power gathering around him like a storm cloud. The old ways led to endless conflict between Sith lords, each seeking to rule alone. Lord Khan has shown us a better path, one where we stand united against our true enemy, the Jedi. And does this unity not contradict the very nature of the dark side? Does not ambition demand that the strong rule over the weak? Careful, acolyte, Cordis hissed, his patience clearly waning. Such questions border on sedition. Lord Khan has declared that all Sith of the Brotherhood are equals in our war against the light. This is not a matter for debate. Bane bowed his head, not in submission, but to hide the contempt that threatened to show on his face. Of course, Master. I seek only to learn. Then learn this. Cordis returned to his seat. You are being transferred to the front lines. Lord Khan believes your talents will be of greater use in the campaign against the Army of Light on Ruusan. You depart tomorrow. That night, Bane sought out Githany one final time. They met in the shadow of an ancient Sith tomb, the carved stone monolith looming over them like a silent judge. Cordis suspects something, Bane told her. I'm being sent to Ruusan. Then he fears you, Githany replied, her smile a predatory flash in the darkness. As well he should. What I've learned cannot be unlearned. The Brotherhood is doomed to failure because it defies the very nature of the dark side. Then what will you do? Bane looked toward the stars, his face set in grim determination. For now, I will go to Ruusan. I will observe Lord Khan firsthand. And then, if what I suspect is true, I will do what must be done. And what is that? Githany asked, stepping closer. The Sith must be destroyed, Bane said simply, so that the Sith might survive. Githany's breath caught. You speak of annihilation. I speak of purification, Bane corrected. The weak must be culled, so that the strong may flourish. One master, to embody the power, one apprentice to crave it. That is the way of the true Sith. That is the rule of two that Darth Revan foresaw. As their eyes met in the darkness, a silent understanding passed between them. Destinies now intertwined, they stood at the precipice of a new age, though only one would live to see it fully realized. The next morning, as Bane's transport lifted from Korriban's surface, he gazed back at the Valley of the Dark Lords. The ancient Sith buried there had once ruled galaxies, yet their empires had fallen to dust. He would not repeat their mistakes. He would forge something new, something enduring, a legacy that would stretch across millennia, culminating in the final revenge of the Sith. The journey to Ruusan had begun. Ruusan was a world torn asunder by war. Once lush forests had been reduced to splintered wasteland by repeated bombardments. Craters from force storms scarred the landscape like pustules on diseased flesh. The air itself tasted of ozone and ash, charged with residual dark side energy from countless Sith rituals. The Brotherhood of Darkness had established their main encampment in what had once been a fertile valley. Now it was a sprawling military installation teeming with Sith lords, acolytes, and soldiers. Massive war beasts prowled between tents, while dark side adepts practiced battle meditation in specially constructed focusing chambers. Lord Khan had transformed the Sith into an army, efficient and organized. Yet as Bane walked through the encampment, he sensed not strength but desperation, not unity, but a gathering storm of conflicting ambitions barely contained beneath a veneer of cooperation. He was brought before Khan almost immediately upon arrival. The leader of the Brotherhood cut an impressive figure, handsome and charismatic, with an aura of power that commanded respect. Yet Bane saw beneath the surface charm to the anxiety that lurked in Khan's eyes. "Bane of Apatros," Khan greeted him warmly, as if they were old friends rather than master and subordinate. "Your reputation precedes you. Cordis speaks highly of your abilities." "I am honored to serve the Brotherhood," Bane replied, the lie coming easily to his lips. "We face a critical juncture in this conflict. General Hoth and his army of light grow stronger by the day. Reinforcements arrive from the Republic core worlds. Our intelligence suggests they are planning a major offensive. And how does the Brotherhood intend to respond?" Khan smiled, but the expression did not reach his eyes. "I have assembled the greatest collection of Sith Lords in 1,000 years. Together, our power is unmatched." "Together," Bane repeated, testing the word like a bitter fruit. If Khan noticed his reservation, he gave no sign. "You will serve under Lord Kopech. His forces are tasked with defending our southern flank. Report to him immediately." Bane bowed and withdrew, his mind calculating. Kopech was a Twi'lek warlord, one of Khan's earliest converts to the Brotherhood, but rumors suggested growing tension between them. An opportunity, perhaps, to observe the fractures already forming in Khan's unified front. The days that followed confirmed Bane's darkest suspicions. On the surface, the Brotherhood functioned as a cohesive military force. But beneath that facade, ancient Sith instincts could not be suppressed. Lords competed for Khan's favor, undermined each other's battle plans, hoarded powerful artifacts, and schemed constantly. Most disturbing was the distribution of power. Khan insisted that all Sith Lords were equals, yet this meant that true masters of the dark side were constrained to the same level as those barely worthy of the title. Mediocrity was not only tolerated but enshrined as policy. During a particularly fierce exchange with Republic forces, Bane witnessed this weakness firsthand. 3 Sith Lords coordinating a counterattack fell into argument over tactics. Their discord rippled through the force, disrupting the battle meditation that supported their troops. Republic forces seized the advantage, and what should have been a minor skirmish became a rout. That night, in the privacy of his tent, Bane activated Revan's holocron once more. "The dark side is not democratic," the ancient Sith Lord's image pronounced. "It does not flourish when power is shared. It demands concentration, focus, the channeling of all its energies through a single vessel strong enough to contain it." "Then the Brotherhood is doomed," Bane whispered to the ghostly figure. "The Brotherhood is not merely doomed," Revan's image replied, seeming to respond directly, though Bane knew it was merely programmed to address common inquiries. "It is an abomination. Many weak Sith will always fall before few strong Jedi. This is the inevitable mathematical truth of power." The holocron continued, outlining a vision that resonated with Bane's deepest instincts. The Sith must be reborn, distilled to their purest essence. One to embody power, one to crave it. 2 alone, no more, no less. Master and apprentice, rule and ambition, uniting the dark side in perfect balance until the apprentice grows strong enough to seize the mantle and continue the cycle with an apprentice of their own. A vision began to form in Bane's mind, not merely of the Brotherhood's destruction, but of what must rise from its ashes. Yet one critical question remained unanswered. How? Bane asked the holocron. How does one Sith destroy 1,000? The holocron's reply was cryptic. When your enemies are many, turn them against each other. When they are few, strike directly. When they are one, use their strength against them. Before Bane could probe deeper, a disturbance outside interrupted his contemplation. He deactivated the holocron and concealed it just as a messenger entered his tent. Lord Bane, the young acolyte said, using the honorific that Bane had been granted after proving his worth in combat. Lord Khan requires your presence immediately. A council of war is being assembled. As Bane followed the messenger through the encampment, he sensed a shift in the atmosphere. Fear permeated the air, more pronounced than before. Something had changed. In Khan's command tent, dozens of Sith Lords had gathered. Their faces reflected a mixture of anger, anxiety, and in some cases poorly disguised satisfaction, at others misfortune. Lord Khan stood at the center, his customary charisma strained as he addressed the assembly. The Jedi have deployed a new weapon against us, Khan announced. A form of battle meditation that counters our own. 3 of our forward positions have already fallen. Murmurs rippled through the gathering. Bane observed silently, noting which lords appeared genuinely concerned and which were already calculating how to use this setback to their advantage. We must respond with our full strength, Khan continued, united, focused, as one unstoppable force. Bane's lips curved in a slight sardonic smile. Even now, facing defeat, Khan clung to his flawed philosophy. The very concept of unity was foreign to the dark side, a weak Jedi principle imposed upon Sith nature. In that moment, watching Khan struggle to maintain control over his fractious brotherhood, Bane understood with perfect clarity what must be done. Not merely the destruction of the Brotherhood, but a complete rebirth of the Sith. And to accomplish this, he would need to become not just a lord among many, but the Dark Lord, singular and absolute. The path forward crystallized in his mind. With terrible precision, first he would rise within the Brotherhood, gaining Khan's trust. Then, when the moment was right, he would bring everything crashing down. The war on Ruusan intensified as General Hoth's army of light pressed their advantage. Day after day, Jedi battle meditation countered Sith sorcery. Night after night, the Brotherhood retreated to increasingly desperate positions. And through it all, Bane watched, calculated, and waited. He had begun to earn Lord Khan's confidence, offering tactical insights that delayed what would otherwise have been swift defeats. Yet he was careful not to appear too successful, too indispensable. The surest path to destruction within the Brotherhood was to outshine its leader. On the 73rd day of Bane's presence on Ruusan, a familiar face appeared among the new arrivals from Korriban. Githany strode into the encampment with the confidence of one who knew her own worth, her beauty a weapon as deadly as the lightsaber at her hip. Her eyes found Bane immediately, a silent communication passing between them. Later, they met in the shadows beyond the perimeter guards, speaking in hushed tones despite the privacy. Korriban has been evacuated, Githany informed him. The academy is abandoned. Lord Khan has recalled every Sith in the galaxy to Ruusan for a final stand. A final act of desperation, Bane observed. He gathers all our strength in one place, vulnerable to a single strike. There are whispers that he plans to deploy a thought bomb. Bane's expression darkened. The thought bomb was an ancient Sith ritual of terrible power, capable of annihilating Force users across an entire planet. But it came at an unspeakable cost, the destruction of those who summoned it as well. Then Khan is not merely desperate. He is insane. Perhaps, Githany moved closer, her voice dropping further, or perhaps he believes he has found a way to control it, to direct its energies solely at the Jedi. Impossible. The thought bomb consumes all who wield the Force, Sith and Jedi alike. It is the ultimate weapon of mutual destruction. Nevertheless, he has ancient scrolls recovered from the tombs on Korriban. He studies them day and night. This new information required consideration. If Khan truly intended to deploy a thought bomb, events were accelerating faster than Bane had anticipated. He needed time to complete his own plans, to ensure that something would survive the coming cataclysm. I must see these scrolls, Bane decided. Can you gain access to them? Githany's smile was all the answer he needed. 3 nights later, with scrolls borrowed during Khan's fitful sleep, Bane confirmed his fears. The ritual described was indeed the thought bomb, but Khan's interpretation was fatally flawed. Whether through self-deception or simple error, he believed he had discovered a method to shield the Brotherhood from the weapon's effects. No such protection existed. If deployed, the thought bomb would consume every Force sensitive on Ruusan, Sith and Jedi alike. Yet as Bane studied the ancient text more deeply, he saw not catastrophe, but opportunity. The thought bomb would accomplish what he alone could not: the complete destruction of the Brotherhood. From this cleansing fire, a purified Sith order could rise, but he himself would need to survive. The scrolls hinted at a possibility, a way to shield oneself by severing all connection to the Force temporarily, becoming invisible to the thought bomb's hunger. Such an act would require unimaginable discipline and willpower, cutting oneself off from the very source of a Sith's power. For the next week, while battles raged across Ruusan's surface, Bane spent his nights in deep meditation, practicing the technique described in the scrolls. It was agonizing, like severing a limb without anesthetic. Each attempt left him drained, shaking with exhaustion and withdrawal. But gradually, hour by hour, he mastered the ability to close himself off from the Force, to become temporarily dead to its currents. On the 8th night, Githany found him after one such session, his face grey with strain. "Lord Khan requests your presence," she informed him. "The Brotherhood gathers for what he calls the final council." Bane composed himself, drawing once more on the dark side to restore his strength. "Then the time has come." The atmosphere in Khan's command tent was electric with tension. Every surviving Sith Lord had assembled, their combined presence in the Force creating a maelstrom of dark energy. Lord Khan stood at the center, his handsome features alight with fervor that bordered on madness. "Brothers and sisters in darkness," Khan began, his voice carrying unnatural resonance. "The Jedi believe they have us cornered. General Hoth prepares his final assault, confident in victory." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Fear, anger, defiance, all intermixed. "Let them come," Khan continued, "for I have discovered a weapon that will annihilate them utterly. The thought bomb, most terrible of all Sith sorceries." Shock rippled through the gathering. Even among these dark side adepts, the thought bomb was spoken of only in whispers, a doomsday weapon too dangerous to contemplate. "My lord," an elder Sith spoke up, his voice quavering. "The thought bomb destroys all Force users in its radius. We would be consumed alongside the Jedi." So it was in the past. Khan agreed. But I have unlocked secrets unknown for millennia. With our combined strength, we can direct the weapon's hunger solely toward our enemies. Lies Bane knew. Whether Khan believed them himself was irrelevant. The Brotherhood was being led to slaughter. I require your answer now, Khan demanded. Who stands with me in this final victory? Who among you has the courage to wield ultimate power? One by one, the Sith Lords pledged themselves, some eagerly, others with clear reservation. When Bane's turn came, he stepped forward with carefully constructed enthusiasm. Your vision is unparalleled, Lord Khan, he declared. I pledge myself to this great working. Khan's eyes gleamed with triumph, blind to the calculation behind Bane's words. Then it is settled. Tomorrow, when Hoth's forces advance, we will be ready. As the council dispersed, Bane sought solitude beneath Ruusan's 2 moons. The stars above bore silent witness to what would soon unfold, to the end of one age and the birth of another. In the contemplative stillness, he reached out through the Force, feeling the currents of destiny shifting around him. The old Sith had failed because they fought amongst themselves, squandering their power in petty rivalries. Khan's Brotherhood had failed by attempting to suppress this natural competition, diluting the dark side's potency through shared mediocrity. The path forward lay between these extremes, conflict channeled into purpose, ambition harnessed to drive evolution. The Rule of 2 would ensure that each generation of Sith grew stronger than the last. The apprentice would learn all the master had to teach, then seize power when ready, selecting a new apprentice to continue the cycle. Centuries might pass, but eventually the Sith would produce one with power enough to destroy the Jedi forever. Dawn broke over Ruusan. Bane felt a profound sense of calm. Today, 1,000 years of Sith history would end in fire. Tomorrow, a new chapter would begin, written by his hand alone. The thought bomb was about to detonate, and with it, the old order would be swept away. From those ashes, Darth Bane would forge a legacy that would endure until the stars themselves grew cold. The caves beneath Ruusan's surface stretched in darkness, a labyrinth of stone and shadow where the Brotherhood had established their final redoubt. Here, deep within the earth, Lord Khan gathered his followers for the ritual that would supposedly deliver them victory. Hundreds of Sith Lords formed concentric circles around a central chamber, their combined presence causing the very air to shimmer with dark side energy. Bane positioned himself carefully, close enough to observe, but not so near that he would be immediately consumed when the thought bomb detonated. Githany stood several paces away, her eyes meeting his briefly across the crowd. Did she suspect his true intentions? Did she understand that none of them would survive the day? Her expression revealed nothing. Lord Khan entered the inner chamber, last, carrying an ancient Sith artifact, a metallic sphere etched with cryptic symbols and pulsing with malevolent energy. The thought bomb's catalyst. As he placed it at the center of the gathering, a hush fell over the assembled Sith. The Jedi advanced toward our position, Khan announced, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. General Hoth leads them personally, believing he comes to deliver the killing blow to our Brotherhood. Instead, he marches toward his doom and the doom of all who follow him. Excitement and anticipation surged through the crowd. Many still believed Khan's promise that they would survive what was to come. Their faith would be their undoing. "Join with me now," Khan commanded. "Pour your hatred, your anger, your lust for vengeance into the sphere. Together, we will create a weapon that will be remembered for millennia to come." The ritual began, hundreds of Sith extending their hands toward the sphere, channeling dark side energy in cascading waves. The air grew thick, difficult to breathe. Bane participated outwardly, while inwardly preparing the mental technique that would temporarily sever his connection to the Force. As the power built toward crescendo, Bane observed Khan closely. The Brotherhood's leader stood at the eye of the tempest, his expression shifting from triumph to uncertainty to dawning horror as the energies he had unleashed began to spiral beyond his control. "Something is wrong," Khan whispered, though somehow his voice carried to every ear. "The containment field is not forming correctly. We must abort the ritual." Too late. The metallic sphere had begun to pulse with blinding light, drawing in Force energy at an accelerating rate. Several Sith in the innermost circle collapsed, their vital essence literally sucked from their bodies. Panic erupted. Some tried to flee, only to find their connection to the Force acting as chains, binding them to the hungry sphere. Others redoubled their efforts, believing salvation lay in completing the ritual properly. Khan himself stood paralyzed, watching his grand design collapse into catastrophe. In the chaos, Bane slipped toward the cavern's exit. The moment had come. With supreme effort of will, he implemented the ancient technique, cutting himself off from the Force entirely. The sensation was one of absolute devastation, as if every sense had been simultaneously blinded. He staggered, nearly falling, the universe suddenly hollow around him. But it worked. As the thought bomb reached critical mass, its hungry tendrils ignored him, unable to detect his presence in the Force. The last thing he saw before sealing himself in a side tunnel was Githani's face. She had followed him, perhaps understanding, at the final moment, what he had known all along. Their eyes met one last time across the chamber. Recognition dawned in her gaze, followed by bitter understanding. Then the thought bomb detonated. Even sealed away and cut off from the Force, Bane felt the shockwave. The physical blast was minimal, the real destruction occurring on a spiritual plane. But the psychic echo was deafening, a silent scream as hundreds of Sith and Jedi souls were simultaneously ripped from their bodies and trapped within the thought bomb's energy matrix. For hours, Bane remained in his shelter, maintaining his severed state despite the agony it caused. Only when he was certain the thought bomb's effects had fully manifested did he cautiously re-establish his connection to the Force. The sensation was like drawing breath after nearly drowning. The dark side rushed back into him, sweeter and more potent than he had ever experienced it. And eerily, impossibly, stronger than before. With his awareness restored, Bane understood why. The thought bomb had created a void in the Force itself, a wound that the dark side rushed to fill. Without hundreds of lesser Sith to draw upon its power, the full current now flowed through him alone, exactly as Darth Revan had predicted. When Bane finally emerged onto Ruusan's surface, he found a landscape transformed. The forests and fields where armies had clashed were now crystallized, frozen in the moment of destruction. No bodies remained, of either Sith or Jedi, their physical forms entirely consumed by the thought bomb. Standing amid this devastation, Bane removed his Brotherhood insignia and cast it aside. That organization had perished, fulfilling its final purpose as the sacrifice necessary for rebirth. From this moment forward, there was only one true Sith in the galaxy. "I am Darth Bane," he declared to the empty landscape, formally claiming the ancient title. Dark Lord of the Sith and architect of its future. But one Sith alone was not enough. The rule of two required both master and apprentice. Somewhere in the galaxy, he would need to find a worthy vessel into which he could pour his knowledge, a successor who would one day surpass him and continue the grand design. As Bane contemplated this next step in his journey, he sensed a flicker in the Force. A survivor, perhaps? Impossible unless... He turned toward the source of the disturbance, his hand moving to his lightsaber. From behind a crystallized outcropping emerged a child, a human girl, no more than 10 years old. Her clothing marked her as one of the planet's native inhabitants, caught in the crossfire between Sith and Jedi. Yet there was something unusual about her, a latent power that hummed beneath the surface. Untrained but potent Force sensitivity, somehow shielded from the thought bomb's hunger. The girl stared at him without fear, her eyes reflecting a strength of will surprising in one so young. "They're all gone," she said simply. "Everyone. I felt them disappear." Bane studied her with growing interest. "What is your name, child?" "Rain," she answered. Then after a pause, "No, not anymore. My real name is Xana." Destiny, it seemed, had provided him with a candidate far sooner than expected. Bane approached the girl slowly, extending his awareness through the Force to probe her potential more deeply. Yes, there was great power there, raw and untamed. With proper training, she could become formidable indeed. "Xana," he repeated, tasting the name. "Do you understand what has happened here?" "The end of everything," she replied with uncanny perception.
"No," Bane corrected. "Not an end, a beginning." He extended his hand toward her. "Would you like to learn power beyond anything you've imagined? Would you like to help me create a new order that will one day rule the galaxy?" The girl regarded
his outstretched hand with a wariness beyond her years. Then, decision made, she placed her small palm against his. "Yes," Xana said, her young voice somehow carrying the weight of prophecy. "I would." With that simple exchange, the rule of two
was established.
Master and apprentice, the dark side concentrated in just 2 vessels rather than diluted among many. Exactly as Darth Revan had foreseen. As they walked away from the crystallized battlefield, Bane already began planning his apprentice's education. She would learn the ways of the dark side, master lightsaber combat and Force techniques, study the ancient texts that the Brotherhood had neglected, and one day, when she had absorbed all he had to teach, she would kill him and take an apprentice of her own, continuing the cycle. The Sith would remain hidden for now, gathering strength in the shadows while the Republic and the Jedi believed them extinct. Centuries might pass before they revealed themselves. But when that day came, the galaxy would tremble before their power. Darth Bane had destroyed the Sith to save them, and in doing so, he had ensured that the final victory would ultimately be theirs. The temporal temple on Ambria rose from the barren landscape like a spectre, its dark stone absorbing rather than reflecting the harsh sunlight. 5 years had passed since the thought bomb on Ruusan, 5 years of careful planning and ceaseless training. Here, on this desolate world far from the Republic's vigilant eyes, Darth Bane had established the foundation of the new Sith Order. Within the temple's shadowed halls, Xana moved through the complex forms of Makashi, the second lightsaber combat style. Her crimson blade hummed and flickered as she executed precise cuts and parries against imaginary opponents. At 15, she had already grown tall, her childish features sharpening into the countenance of a predator. Her blonde hair was pulled back severely, revealing intense concentration in eyes that had witnessed horrors beyond her years. Bane observed from the chamber's periphery, his massive frame deceptively still. The obelisks that had attached themselves to his body during an expedition to Tython created a living armor across his chest and back, the parasites feeding on his dark side energy while amplifying his strength in return. Their symbiosis was both blessing and curse, offering protection at the cost of constant pain. "Your technique improves," he acknowledged as Xana completed the sequence, "but your mind betrays hesitation. You fear the killing blow." "I do not." "Fear it, Master," Xana replied, deactivating her lightsaber. "I calculate it. Each strike must be necessary, efficient." "Efficiency is not the Sith way," Bane corrected. "Power is our way, domination. The dark side does not flow through calculation, but through passion. Your enemies must not merely die, they must be broken." Xana bowed her head in acknowledgement. Though Bane sensed the reservation, she tried to conceal. His apprentice possessed natural talent for subtlety and manipulation, preferring elegant solutions to brute force. A valuable inclination, but one that required balance with the raw power that was the dark side's true essence. "Come," Bane commanded. "It is time for your next lesson." He led her deeper into the temple, to a chamber devoted to Sith lore. Here the holocrons and texts salvaged from Korriban were stored, along with artifacts collected during Bane's expeditions across the galaxy. Each piece had been carefully selected, each teaching vetted for its adherence to true Sith philosophy rather than the corrupted versions that had flourished under the Brotherhood. The air in the chamber hummed with dark side energy. Bane activated a particular holocron, one containing the teachings of Darth Revan. The holographic figure materialized, its masked face turning toward Xana. "The apprentice stands before me," Revan's recording observed. "Potential, unrefined. Power, unleashed. Do you understand the burden you carry, young one?" Xana straightened, meeting the holocron's gaze directly. "I do, Lord Revan. I am the future of the Sith, the vessel through which our revenge will one day be realized." "And how will this revenge be accomplished?" the holocron inquired. "Through patience, through cunning, through the rule of two that key you envisioned and my master has implemented." Bane nodded in approval. His apprentice had memorized the doctrine perfectly. But mere recitation was not understanding. "The rule of two is not merely organizational structure," Bane interjected. "It is evolutionary principle applied to the dark side. Explain." Xana considered her words carefully. "Under the rule of two, each generation of Sith grows stronger than the last. The apprentice learns all the master has to teach, then adds new knowledge, new techniques. When the apprentice surpasses the master and claims the title, the cycle begins anew, with each iteration producing more powerful Sith. And the eventual outcome? A Sith powerful enough to destroy the Jedi and rule the galaxy," Xana answered without hesitation. Bane circled his apprentice slowly, the obelisks on his skin pulsing with his heightened emotion. "And your role in this grand design? Here?" Xana paused, understanding the true question hidden beneath the obvious one. "To learn everything you can teach me, to expand that knowledge through my own study and experimentation, and ultimately to kill you when I have grown strong enough, taking an apprentice of my own to continue the cycle." The truth hung between them, acknowledged yet never before stated so directly. Bane smiled, a rare expression that transformed his severe features. "Good," he said simply. "You understand what many Sith before us could not, that the ultimate loyalty is not to the individual, but to the dark side itself. I am not your final master, Xana. The dark side alone deserves that title. I am merely its current embodiment, as you will be after me. The holocron of Revan observed this exchange silently, its programmed intelligence sophisticated enough to recognize the significance of what transpired. You have chosen well, Darth Bane, the holocron commented. The girl has clarity of purpose, but the road ahead contains trials you have not anticipated. Explain, Bane demanded. The Jedi believe the Sith extinct, yet they will remain vigilant. Maintaining secrecy while gathering power requires perfect balance. Too passive, and your line will stagnate. Too aggressive, and you will reveal yourselves before the time is right. Bane had considered this dilemma extensively. The answer lies
in indirect action. We will manipulate events from the shadows, sowing discord and weakening the Republic's foundations without revealing our hand. A dangerous game, Revan's holocron warned. The dark side craves expression. Containment creates
pressure, and pressure must find release. Xana spoke up unexpectedly. Then we channel that pressure strategically, create proxies to act on our behalf, fight our battles without being seen. Both Bane and the holocron turned toward her, a moment of surprised silence followed by Bane's contemplative nod. An astute observation, he acknowledged. This merits further consideration. The meeting continued for hours, strategy and philosophy intertwining, as master and apprentice planned not merely for years, but for centuries. The new Sith would require patience beyond anything their predecessors had imagined. Each generation would advance the grand design incrementally, positioning pieces on the galactic board for a game whose final moves might not be played for a millennium. Later that night, alone in her quarters, Xana reflected on the day's lessons. She understood her purpose more clearly than ever, the role she would play in the Sith's evolution. One day she would indeed challenge her master, claiming his place when her power eclipsed his, not out of disloyalty or ingratitude, but because the rule of two demanded it. The thought should have filled her with anticipation, with hungry ambition. Instead, she felt a curious hollowness. Was this what it meant to be Sith? To plot the destruction
of one's own mentor as the ultimate expression of respect? Xana banished such doubts immediately. Sentiment was weakness, attachment a chain. Bane himself had taught her this, had demonstrated it through his willingness to sacrifice an entire
brotherhood for the greater purpose. She activated her lightsaber, watching its crimson blade cast blood-red shadows across her chamber walls. The weapon symbolized everything she had become, everything she would yet be. Not just a tool for killing, but an extension of will, a focus for power. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Jedi continued their vigil, believing the Sith menace ended forever on Ruusan. Their complacency would ultimately be their undoing. For while they basked in false victory, the true Sith were only beginning to realize their potential. One master to embody power, one apprentice to crave it. The rule of two. The future of the Sith, and ultimately the architect of the Jedi's destruction. 10 years into their partnership, master and apprentice journeyed to Dxun, ancient stronghold of Freedon Nad and burial ground for countless dark side artifacts. The jungle moon orbiting Onderon teemed with predators both natural and unnatural, corrupted by centuries of Sith alchemy. The very air pulsed with dark energies, making it an ideal location for what Bane had planned. They moved through the dense undergrowth in silence, Bane leading with practiced caution despite his imposing size. The obelisks covering much of his body had grown more numerous, their parasitic armor now extending across his shoulders and down his arms. Though they amplified, his connection to the dark side, their constant drain, had begun to take a visible toll. His face appeared more gaunt, his eyes burning with feverish intensity. Xana followed closely, her awareness extended through the Force to detect any threats. At 20, she had developed into a formidable Sith in her own right. While lacking her master's brute strength, she had cultivated different talents, particularly in the realms of Sith sorcery and mental manipulation. "We are being tracked," she noted quietly, sensing the predatory intent of something massive moving parallel to their path. "Yes," Bane acknowledged without slowing. "A Drexel ball. It has been following us since we crossed the ridge." "Shall I eliminate it?" "No, its presence serves our purpose. The beast's aggression draws attention away from more subtle disturbances in the Force. The Jedi monitoring Onderon will attribute any dark side emanations to the natural corruption of this moon." They continued until reaching a clearing dominated by a massive stone structure half buried beneath centuries of jungle growth. Ancient Mandalorian symbols adorned its weathered surface, interspersed with newer markings added during Freedon Nad's occupation centuries earlier. "This is one of the few places where we can safely gather without risk of detection," Bane explained. "The ambient dark side energy masks our presence, while the ongoing conflict between Onderon and the Beast Riders provides convenient distraction for any Republic investigators." Inside the structure, they descended through multiple levels, passing chambers filled with decaying war machines and ceremonial spaces where Mandalorian warriors once prepared for battle. Finally, they reached their destination, a vast circular room deep beneath the surface, its walls inscribed with Sith hieroglyphics that pulsed with faint red luminescence. "The Chamber of Convergence," Bane announced, "created by Freedon Nadi to amplify ritual workings. Here we will combine our knowledge, consolidating what we have each learned separately." For 3 days they worked without interruption, sharing discoveries and techniques. Bane revealed advances in lightsaber combat and force manipulation that he had perfected in private. Xana demonstrated new applications of Sith sorcery, particularly methods to cloud the minds of Force sensitives and render Sith presence undetectable. On it. The 4th day, as they prepared for a particularly complex ritual, Bane suddenly stiffened, his head turning toward the chamber entrance. "We have company," he stated flatly. Moments later, 3 figures appeared at the threshold, silhouetted against the dim passage beyond. As they stepped into the chamber's red glow, their features became clear. 2 humans and a Twi'lek, all wearing the distinctive robes of Jedi Knights. "Sith!" The lead Jedi spat the word like poison. "We were right. You didn't all die on Ruusan." Bane straightened to his full height, making no attempt to hide his nature. "You are perceptive Jedi, more so than your masters on Coruscant who pronounced
our order extinct. The Council will learn the truth soon enough," the Jedi replied, igniting his lightsaber.
His companions followed suit, green and blue blades humming in the ancient chamber. Bane made a subtle gesture toward Xana. "Wait." This encounter presented an unexpected opportunity, one that required careful handling. "Before you attempt something."
"Irrevocably foolish," Bane addressed the Jedi. "Consider what you face. I am Darth Bane, architect of the thought bomb that consumed your brethren on Ruusan. My apprentice and I represent the full strength of the Sith Order."
The Jedi exchanged glances, momentary uncertainty flickering across their faces. The lead knight recovered quickly. "All the more reason to end your threat here and now." Bane smiled, a predatory expression. "You misunderstand. The Brotherhood, that waged war against your order is gone, destroyed by my hand. What rises in its place poses no immediate threat to your republic. We are scholars, preservers of knowledge, not conquerors. Lies, the Twi'lek Jedi hissed. The dark side exists only to dominate. Yet here we stand, having made no move against
You for a decade, Bane countered. Ask yourselves, if conquest were our goal, why have we remained hidden?
Why have we not raised armies as Khan did? The doubt he sought to plant took visible root. The Jedi had expected fanatical aggression, not reasoned discourse. Their certainty wavered. In that moment of hesitation, Zana struck. Not with her lightsaber, but with Sith sorcery, tendrils of dark energy snaking invisibly toward the Jedi's minds, enhancing their uncertainty, magnifying their confusion. Perhaps we should bring them to the Council for judgment, the younger human Jedi suggested, his voice uncertain. No, the leader decided after visible internal struggle. They are Sith. There can be no compromise. All three advanced simultaneously, lightsabers raised. Bane ignited his own crimson blade, while Zana unfurled her unique double-bladed weapon, its twin crimson beams illuminating her face with hellish light. What followed was not combat, but slaughter. Bane moved with impossible speed, the obelisks, channeling dark side energy to enhance his already formidable abilities. The lead Jedi died first, his blade deflected before Bane's lightsaber seared through his chest. The second fell moments later, decapitated by a sweeping strike. The Twi'lek, more cautious than his companions, lasted longer against Zana. Her unusual weapon created unpredictable attack angles, forcing the Jedi to remain defensive. When the opening finally came, her strike was precise and merciless, her blade piercing the Jedi's throat. As the last body crumpled to the chamber floor, Bane extinguished his lightsaber and turned to his apprentice. "This changes our plans," he stated, calmly. "These three will be missed. Questions will be asked. The Jedi will intensify their search for dark side practitioners. Should we relocate?" Zana asked, already calculating contingencies. "No," Bane decided. "This presents an opportunity to implement your strategy more aggressively. The proxies, you suggested the use of intermediaries to further our goals while maintaining our cover." "You mean to create a diversion?" "Precisely. We will fabricate evidence suggesting a new, dark side cult, separate from the Sith, operating in the Outer Rim. The Jedi will exhaust themselves hunting this phantom menace while we continue our work undetected." Zana nodded, understanding immediately. "I can plant suggestions in the minds of certain criminal elements, guiding them to adopt Sith-like symbolism. The Jedi will chase these false leads for years." "See to it," Bane commanded. "Meanwhile, I will accelerate our primary objective. The archive on Korriban must be secured before the Jedi think to search there." As they prepared to leave the chamber, disposing of the Jedi bodies through ancient Sith alchemy that reduced them to dust, Bane observed his apprentice with renewed appreciation. Her suggestion had provided the perfect solution to their immediate problem. More importantly, it demonstrated her growing strategic vision, her ability to perceive paths invisible to others. Soon, perhaps sooner than he had anticipated, she would be ready to challenge him for mastery. The cycle would continue, the rule of two functioning exactly as designed. The dark side would grow stronger with each generation, concentrated and refined, until the day came when the final Sith Lord would emerge to claim vengeance against the Jedi. As they ascended toward the surface, Bane felt a profound satisfaction. The Brotherhood's destruction had been necessary, painful, but essential. What rose from those ashes would endure for millennia, patient and invisible, until the perfect moment for the Sith to reclaim their rightful place as rulers of the galaxy. The ancient Sith Academy on Korriban stood abandoned, its stone halls silent, save for the whisper of desert winds. Once, these corridors had echoed with the footsteps of hundreds of acolytes. Now only two figures moved through the shadows, their presence a deliberate defiance of the desolation that had claimed this place. Darth Bane strode purposefully ahead, his heavy footfalls echoing against worn stone. 20 years had passed since the thought bomb on Ruusan, 2 decades of careful planning and constant vigilance. The obelisks that had once armored his body were gone, destroyed during a confrontation that had nearly cost him his life. Their removal had left him scarred. But freed from their parasitic drain, his connection to the dark side purified rather than diminished. Zana followed several paces behind, her movements fluid and graceful, in contrast to her master's imposing presence. At 30, she had reached the height of her physical prime. Her command of Sith sorcery had grown exponentially, her ability to create phantoms and invade minds unmatched by any Force user in centuries. The archives should remain intact, Bane observed, as they descended a grand staircase toward the Academy's lower levels. The Jedi were more concerned with hunting survivors than preserving knowledge. Their loss, Zana remarked. Their understanding of the dark side remains superficial at best. They fear what they refuse to study. They reached a massive stone door inscribed with ancient Sith hieroglyphics. Bane placed his palm against its center, channeling dark side energy in a precise pattern. The symbols illuminated with crimson light, and the door slid open with a sound like distant thunder. Beyond lay the true archives of Korriban, a vast chamber that had remained sealed since the Brotherhood's fall. Shelves stretched into darkness, laden with scrolls, datacrons, and artifacts collected over millennia. This was the unfiltered history of the Sith, not the sanitized versions permitted in Republic archives. Here lies the wisdom of 1,000 generations, Bane stated, his voice uncharacteristically reverent. Knowledge that must be preserved for our successors. They worked methodically, cataloguing and selecting the most valuable materials for transport to their new sanctuary. Certain artifacts were too dangerous to move or too powerful to risk falling into Jedi hands. These Bane secured with additional protections, ensuring they would remain hidden until a worthy Sith returned to claim them. As Zana examined a particularly ancient scroll, she sensed a subtle shift in her Master's Force signature. Looking up, she found him watching her with an intensity that communicated volumes without words. "You wonder if today is the day," Bane stated, not a question, but an observation. Zana set the scroll aside carefully. "The thought has occurred to me. Here, among the tombs of our predecessors, would be fitting," Bane acknowledged, "the cycle completing itself where it began." For 2 decades, this unspoken reality had hovered between them. The rule of 2 demanded that the apprentice eventually challenge the master. Both knew this day would come, both had prepared for it, though neither could predict its exact timing. "Is that why you brought me here?" Zana asked. "For our final confrontation?" "I brought you here because the knowledge contained in these archives is vital to our Order's survival," Bane replied evenly. "But I am not blind to the symbolism, nor to your readiness." Zana held his gaze steadily. "And your
assessment of that readiness? You have mastered every teaching I could offer."
"Your command of Sith sorcery exceeds my own. Your understanding of the dark side is profound. Bane moved toward the center of the chamber, his lightsaber remaining on his belt. The question is not whether you are ready, but whether you believe yourself ready. The moment stretched between them, decades of shared purpose balanced against the fundamental truth of their relationship. Master and apprentice, teacher and student, each representing a link in the chain that would stretch across centuries, leading inevitably to the Sith's ultimate revenge. Not here, Xana decided finally. Not today. These archives must be secured first. Our mission takes precedence over personal ambition. Bane's expression revealed nothing, though Xana perceived both approval and perhaps a trace of disappointment through their force bond. Wisdom, he acknowledged. The rule of two serves the Sith, not the individual. Remember that when your time comes to train an apprentice of your own. They resumed their work in silence, the unspoken confrontation deferred but not forgotten. Hours passed as they selected materials for preservation, occasionally consulting one another about particularly significant finds. Near midnight, as they prepared to seal the chamber once more, Bane discovered something unexpected behind a false wall. A holocron of distinctive design, its pyramidal structure formed from a crystal unlike any he had encountered before. Remarkable, he murmured, lifting the artifact carefully. I believe this may be the holocron of Darth Bane, thought.
Lost for millennia, the immortal god king of Prakith. Xana moved closer, studying the holocron with keen interest.
His techniques for cheating death were legendary and potentially dangerous. Bane turned the holocron slowly, examining its intricate engravings. Immortality defies the rule of two. If masters could extend their lives indefinitely, the cycle of improvement would stagnate. Yet knowledge itself is neutral, Xana argued. Understanding his methods doesn't require implementing them. Bane considered his apprentice thoughtfully. Your perspective has merit. We will secure this holocron separately. Its secrets may prove valuable, provided they are approached with proper caution. As they prepared to depart Korriban, loading their carefully selected artifacts onto their ship, Bane paused to survey the ancient academy one final time. The massive edifice stood as silent testimony to a philosophy that had nearly destroyed itself through excess. A whisper lost in time, he murmured, echoing words spoken 2 decades earlier on the crystallized plains of Rusan. Xana, standing at his side, completed the thought, and the whisper grew into a storm across eternity. Their eyes met in rare, perfect understanding. What they had built together was greater than either of them individually, a legacy that would endure long after both had returned to the Force. The Brotherhood's unrestrained numbers had been its downfall. The rule of two would ensure the Sith's survival through careful propagation of power, each generation stronger than the last. As their ship lifted from Korriban's ancient surface, carrying the distilled wisdom of the Sith Order, both master and apprentice looked toward the stars with certainty. Somewhere out there, the Jedi continued their vigil, believing the dark side contained. They could not know that their greatest enemy was evolving, growing stronger in secret, waiting for the perfect moment to emerge from shadows. The galaxy turned, oblivious to the patient predator in its midst. One day, perhaps centuries from now, the final Sith would rise to claim ultimate power. On that day, the Jedi would understand too late the price of their complacency, and the whisper would indeed become a storm. Their new sanctuary on Kautrek IV offered perfect anonymity, a private estate purchased through layers of intermediaries. Located in the planet's northern hemisphere, far from the bustling governmental centers, the compound provided both security and seclusion. Ancient trees surrounded the stone mansion, their massive trunks and dense foliage creating natural barriers against unwanted observation. Within these walls, Darth Bane had created a repository for the knowledge salvaged from Korriban. The holocrons, scrolls, and artifacts they had recovered now resided in specially constructed vaults beneath the estate, protected by both physical barriers and Sith alchemy. On this particular evening, 25 years after Ruusan, Bane sat alone in his meditation chamber. His eyes were closed, his breathing measured as he communed with the dark side. Age had weathered his once imposing frame, the scars left by the obelisks more pronounced against his paler skin. Yet his presence in the Force remained undiminished, a nexus of dark side energy that seemed to bend reality around it. The door opened without sound. Zana entered, pausing at the threshold to observe her master. Though she had mastered the art of moving undetected, she made no attempt to conceal her presence. This confrontation had been brewing for a quarter century. There would be no subterfuge, no assassination. When it came, it would be direct and honorable, master against apprentice as tradition demanded. Bane opened his eyes, acknowledging her presence with a slight nod. The holocron of Andedu has revealed its secrets. And, Zana inquired, moving into the chamber but maintaining a respectful distance. His technique for transferring consciousness is fundamentally flawed, Bane reported dispassionately. It offers the appearance of immortality while violating the essential principle of growth. The spirit may endure, but it becomes static, incapable of true evolution. As you predicted, Zana noted, the rule of two requires both preservation and transformation. One without the other leads to stagnation. Bane rose from his meditation position, his movements deliberate. You have internalized the core principle well. The question remains whether you have developed the strength to advance it. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with anticipation and dark side energy. For 25 years they had worked toward this moment, master teaching apprentice everything he knew, apprentice absorbing and expanding upon that knowledge until she was prepared to claim her rightful place. I believe I have, Zana stated simply. Bane's smile was genuine, filled with pride and acceptance. Then it is time to prove it. Neither reached for their lightsaber immediately. Instead, they circled each other slowly, two nexuses of dark side power preparing for the confrontation that would determine the future of their order. Before we begin, Bane said, there is one final lesson, the most important of all. Zana waited, alert for any deception. This was no time for new teachings, yet she sensed no trick in her master's words. The rule of two is not about the individual, Bane continued. It is about the dark side itself, growing stronger with each generation. When you strike me down, you will not be betraying me, but fulfilling my purpose. And when your own apprentice
eventually strikes you down, it will not be failure, but completion. Do you understand? I do, Master, Zana replied solemnly. Our personal ambitions serve a greater design. The Sith endure through change, not permanence. Good. Bane drew
his lightsaber, but did not ignite it. Then let us complete this cycle as it began, with clarity of purpose and no restraint. Both activated their weapons simultaneously, crimson blades illuminating the chamber with bloody light. They moved together as if in choreographed dance, decades of training creating a perfect balance between them. Bane's style was direct, and the powerful, each strike containing the full measure of his considerable strength. Xana countered with precision and fluidity, her double-bladed lightsaber creating a defensive perimeter that seemed impenetrable. The battle flowed throughout the compound, neither combatant gaining decisive advantage. Furnishings were destroyed, walls scorched by lightsaber burns and force lightning. Through it all, master and apprentice maintained perfect focus, their confrontation transcending mere physical combat to become a contest of wills, a test of which vision of the dark side would prevail. Hours passed, exhaustion beginning to take its toll on both. Bane had the advantage of experience, Xana of youth. As the conflict reached its zenith, they found themselves in the central vault, surrounded by the collected wisdom of the Sith Order they had both worked to preserve. Bane summoned a final surge of dark side energy, launching a barrage of force lightning that would have annihilated a lesser opponent. Xana caught the deadly energy on her lightsaber blade, its crimson length absorbing and channeling the power. In that moment of perfect connection, she executed the technique she had been perfecting for decades, a combination of lightsaber, combat and Sith sorcery uniquely her own. Her blade found its mark. Bane staggered, mortally wounded but still standing through sheer force of will. His lightsaber fell from nerveless fingers, clattering against the stone floor. "Well done," he whispered, satisfaction rather than anger in his voice. The cycle continues. As life faded from his eyes, Xana felt no triumph, only solemn acceptance of her new responsibility. She had not merely defeated her master, she had fulfilled his vision. The rule of two had passed its first and most critical test. The dark side had grown stronger, concentrating its power in the worthier vessel. Darth Bane, creator of the modern Sith Order, was gone. In his place stood Darth Xana, new Dark Lord of the Sith and inheritor of a legacy designed to span centuries. She knelt beside her fallen master, placing a hand upon his chest in a gesture of respect.
"Your vision will endure," she promised. "The Sith will remain hidden until we have grown strong enough to destroy the Jedi completely. The rule of two will guide us generation by generation until the final revenge is ours." Rising, Xana surveyed
the vault with new eyes, seeing it now not as apprentice, but as master. Her first task would be to secure what they had built, ensuring the transition occurred without attracting unwanted attention. Then she would need to find an apprentice of her own, someone with the potential to one day surpass her as she had surpassed Bane. The cycle would continue exactly as designed. Each master would teach their apprentice everything they knew. Each apprentice would absorb that knowledge, expand upon it, and eventually claim the title of master through combat. With each transition, the Sith would grow stronger, their knowledge deeper, their connection to the dark side more profound. And one day, perhaps generations from now, the final Sith would emerge, powerful enough to destroy the Jedi Order and claim dominion over the galaxy. That ultimate victory would belong not to an individual, but to the rule of two itself, to Darth Bane's vision made manifest through the disciplined application of patience and power. As Xana prepared her master's body for the traditional funeral, rites, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From terrified child on Ruusan to Dark Lord of the Sith, her path had been guided by Bane's unwavering vision. Now that vision was hers to preserve and advance, a sacred trust that transcended personal ambition. The dark side whispered approval. in the shadows of the vault, acknowledging the completion of one cycle and the beginning of another. The rule of two had proven its worth. The true Sith order would endure. The funeral pyre burned against the night sky, crimson flames reaching toward distant stars. Darth Zana stood alone on the cliffside, watching as her master's mortal remains were consumed by purifying fire. No witnesses attended this sacred transition, no mourners to mark the passing of one of the most significant Sith Lords in history. Such was the way of the rule of two, a philosophy built on secrecy and patience. As sparks ascended like fireflies into the darkness, Zana reflected
on Bane's legacy.
From a simple Cortosis miner to the architect of a new Sith order, his journey had transformed the very nature of the dark side. The Brotherhood's excesses had been pruned away, replaced by disciplined focus that would allow the Sith to grow, stronger with each generation. When the last embers cooled, Zana gathered Bane's ashes in a small obsidian urn. This, too, was part of the tradition they had established together. The remains of each Dark Lord would be preserved, a physical reminder of the chain of knowledge stretching backward and forward through time. One day, when the Sith finally emerged from the shadows to reclaim their rightful place, these urns would stand as testimony to the patience and vision that had made that victory possible. Returning to the sanctuary on Qutrik 4, Zana placed the urn in a specially prepared alcove
within the vault.
Her fingers lingered momentarily on its smooth surface, a final farewell to the man who had been both mentor and adversary. "The cycle continues," she whispered, echoing Bane's final words. With this ritual complete, Zana turned her attentions to the future. As the new Dark Lord, her first responsibility was clear: finding an apprentice worthy of continuing the lineage. Not merely someone strong in the Force, but an individual with the intelligence and temperament to fully embrace the rule of two. For 2 years, Zana searched discreetly throughout the galaxy, visiting worlds where Force sensitivity might go, undetected by the Jedi. She observed potential candidates from afar, testing their responses to carefully orchestrated challenges. Many showed promising power but lacked the necessary discipline or perspective. Others possessed the mental acuity but insufficient connection to the Force. On Doan, a mining world in the Outer Rim, she finally discovered what she sought: a young, human male named Cognus, orphaned by industrial accident and raised among the planet's underclass. Despite his harsh circumstances, he had not merely survived but thrived, using nascent Force abilities intuitively to anticipate danger and influence weaker minds. More importantly, he possessed a natural understanding of power dynamics that resonated with Sith philosophy. Without formal training, he had already grasped that strength must be earned rather than granted, that knowledge was valuable precisely because it was restricted. When Zana approached him openly, revealing herself as Sith, Cognus showed neither fear nor blind eagerness, only calculated interest. "You offer power," he stated, assessing her with eyes too perceptive for his years. "What do you demand in return?" "Everything," Zana answered honestly. "Your past identity, your unquestioning obedience during training, your willingness to one day surpass me, and the patience to wait until that day arrives naturally." Their eyes met in silent evaluation, predator recognizing predator across the gulf of experience. Finally, Cognus nodded, a decision made with the same pragmatism that had kept him alive in Doan's unforgiving environment. "When do we begin?" Thus commenced the second cycle of Bane's legacy. Master and apprentice, the rule of two, perpetuated through deliberate selection and rigorous training. Darth Cognus proved an apt pupil, absorbing Sith teachings with remarkable speed. His natural affinity for Force precognition complemented Xana's mastery of Sith sorcery, each enhancing the other's understanding. Decades passed. The Republic entered a period of relative stability, its citizens unaware of the patient predator evolving in secret. The Jedi Order, believing the Sith extinct, gradually relaxed its vigilance, focusing instead on maintaining peace throughout the galaxy. This complacency would ultimately prove their undoing, though that final reckoning remained centuries in the future. Generation by generation, the rule of two fulfilled its purpose. Darth Cognus eventually succeeded Xana, claiming the title through trial of combat as tradition demanded. He in turn trained an apprentice who would one day challenge and replace him. With each transition, the Sith grew stronger, their knowledge deeper, their connection to the dark side more refined. Through Republic expansion and contraction, through periods of war and peace, the Sith remained hidden, observing from the shadows, occasionally influencing events indirectly, but never revealing their presence. Patience was their greatest weapon, time their most loyal ally. Nearly 1,000 years after Darth Bane walked away from the devastation on Ruusan, his vision reached its culmination. Darth Sidious, heir to the unbroken lineage of the Rule of Two, orchestrated the fall of the Republic and the Jedi Order with such masterful subtlety that his enemies never recognized the true threat until it was too late. As Jedi fell throughout the galaxy, as the Republic transformed into Empire with a Sith Lord as its Emperor, the final vindication of Bane's philosophy was complete. The dark side, concentrated and refined through countless generations, had proven stronger than the light spread thin among thousands of Jedi. One master to embody power, one apprentice to crave it. This simple rule had accomplished what armies of Sith could not, bringing the galaxy under dark side dominion through patience and discipline rather than brute force. In the moments before his death, at his apprentice's hand, Darth Bane had known this day would come. Not the specific details, but the inevitable conclusion of the path he had set in motion. His final thoughts had not been of defeat, but of satisfaction, of certainty that his legacy would endure until the Sith finally claimed their revenge. Now, as darkness descended across the stars, that revenge was complete. The Rule of Two had served its purpose, transforming the Sith from a fractious brotherhood into the supreme power in the galaxy. From Cortosis Minor to Cosmic Architect, Darth Bane's journey had changed the fate of countless worlds. The Whisper had indeed grown into a storm across eternity, just as he had foreseen on the crystallized plains of Ruusan so long ago. A storm that would reshape the galaxy according to Sith design, fulfilling an ambition not merely of conquest but of fundamental transformation. The darkness welcomes you to drift deeper into sleep now, carried on currents of cosmic design that flow from past to future and back again. The legacy of Darth Bane continues its eternal cycle, power calling to power across the void, while you float gently into dreams as ancient as the stars themselves.